And good evening, everybody, and welcome to the page. It's Chris Kerwin with Astronomy by the Bay. I'm just looking to be sure that we're live on both locations here. We are live right now on YouTube, and it looks like we're live on Facebook at the same time. All good, guys? Mike and Paul,
Yeah,
my guys in the
we
background
get,
there are keeping an eye on things.
let me see. I'll refresh and see if I can find you. There you are.
Sure. Oh boy.
It
Oh
just
boy,
just
here we
takes
go.
takes me a while. I'm on that slow boat, right? There you are.
All right.
There you
So good evening, everybody, and welcome to our offering of the Sunday Night Astronomy Show. Welcome, first of all, to all the new viewers here, including those that are joining us from the St. John West Facebook page, thanks to Hugh McGill. And welcome back to all those who have been with us here before. This is our Sunday night offering of Astronomy Outreach, the Sunday Night Astronomy Show. And my name is Chris Kerwin, and I'll be your host for the next hour. And I would like to welcome back, first of all, Paul Owen. I'm going to click on Paul here so we can get to see him.
are.
And
Hello.
Paul is from the Moonshadow Observatory in Hampton. There he is. And also like to welcome Mike Powell. Mike Powell's back with us this week. Mike is from the PFO
Hello.
Observatory here in St. John. So let's get us back to me, and I'll do a little bit more talking. And we'll say hello to Louis and Andrew Wilson. Good evening. So we've got a number of things here lined up for you this evening. We're going to start with a little bit of a discussion on a new segment that we're adding this week. It's called "What's New in Space." So a little bit about what's happened this week in the night sky and some missions. And then Mike's going to give us one of his famous MacGyver episodes. Tonight he's going to talk about Mike's goodie box. I guess it's an assortment of tools that every astronomer should have. Good deal. And
We'll leave it at that.
I think Mike supplies one of these to everybody on the feed afterwards, Mike, or no? And then we're going to have a Rosanna's Fun Facts right after Mike's talk, presented by Paul. And then Paul's going to get into a topic which is going to be star trails, how to make those beautiful star trails in the photographs that we see. And then following that, we're going to get into some photo submissions that were sent to me. We've got a few of those photos. I'm going to give you the address again to submit your photos to. We love to get your photos and get them up online and show them off to everybody. And from that point on, we're going to look at what we expect to see in our evening sky this week using Stellarium, which is a free open source program. So sit back and enjoy yourselves, and remember, this is a live broadcast, so if you have any questions about the night sky or comments along the way, we're happy to try and answer them for you. So let's get started with our discussion about what's new in space this week, I guess. Let me get my screen shared here. And I'm going to share screen here. There should be that one. And I want to bring up a photo here. How's that? Everybody see the photo?
Yep, we got you.
Great. Okay. So a little bit about what's new in space this week. Of course, the physical distancing is one reason a lot of people mostly currently work from home right now. And even NASA's rover drivers need to work from home right now due to the restrictions related to the slowing of the spread of the coronavirus. And since March 20th, the controllers of the Curiosity rover on Mars have been taking command of the 8-year-old mission from home. Curiosity did its first movements with this new setup, drilling a rock sample at Edinburgh, the current site on Mount Sharp, where it is probing for signs of ancient Martian habitability. And NASA's Mars helicopter, I'm going to get that shot up. There we are. NASA's Mars helicopter will make history in about 10 months when it becomes the first aircraft to fly on another world. Now it has to get its ride to the Red Planet on board this guy here. So on April the 6th, 2020, the helicopter was attached to the belly of the agency's Mars Perseverance rover. There it is sitting down here. And the installation took place inside the Payload Hazardous Servicing Facility at NASA's Kennedy Space Center in Florida, where the rover has remained since its February 9th, 2020 arrival from NASA's JPL lab in Pasadena, California. The twin-rotor, solar-powered helicopter weighs less than 4 pounds. The total length of its rotors is about 4 feet, tip to tip, and its main purpose is a technology demonstration. After Perseverance safely lands on Mars, the helicopter will be released to perform its first in a series of flight tests that will take place during 30 Martian days. And a day on Mars is about 40 minutes longer than a day on Earth. For history's first flight test in a thin Martian atmosphere, which is less than 1% of the density of Earth's, the helicopter is tasked with hovering in the air a few feet off the ground for 20 or 30 seconds before landing. And it's designed to fly on its own without human control using minimal commands from Earth sent in advance. With the helicopter safely tucked away and covered by a shield to protect it during descent and landing, Perseverance will touch down on the red planet on February 18, 2021. Liftoff aboard a United Launch Alliance Atlas V rocket is targeted between July 17th and August 5th from the Cape Canaveral Air Force Station. Let's swing over to the next slide. So buried deep in the data from the now defunct Kepler Space Telescope, astronomers have uncovered an exoplanet some 300 light years away from Earth that could be a promising home for alien life. The world named Kepler 1649c is just a touch larger than Earth, but instead of orbiting a sun-like star like ours, it circles a tiny red dwarf star, a class of stars that are known for throwing violent tantrums. But despite living near a potentially hostile host, Kepler 1649c sits in the star's habitable zone, where liquid water can exist on the planet's surface. At just about 6% the diameter of the Earth, the newfound exoplanet receives about 75% of the starlight that we receive from the sun. These two factors make it a particularly promising candidate for hosting hypothetical life. And by studying Earth-like planets such as Kepler 1649, scientists will continue inching their way toward a more complete understanding of the distribution or the lack of life in the cosmos. And I want to show you this little video. If I can get it to play. Gotta find my right spot here. Oh, we don't want to see that one yet. Hang on. This is the one I want to show. Here we go. SpaceX and NASA announced that they will send 2 astronauts to the International Space Station, the ISS, from the Kennedy Space Center in Florida on May the 27th. The launch will mark the United States' first crewed launch since the end of the Space Shuttle program in 2011. Robert Behnken and Douglas Hurley will blast off in the privately built Dragon crew capsule atop one of SpaceX's Falcon 9 rockets. Both Behnken and Hurley have previously spent time on the ISS during the Space Shuttle. And here we go. I want to get that video there now. So this is the OSIRIS-REx spacecraft traveled to a near-Earth asteroid called Bennu to bring back a small sample to Earth for study. The mission launched on September 8, 2016, and it arrived at Bennu in 2018. Now, this series of images captured on April the 14th during a first rehearsal of the OSIRIS-REx's mission sample collection event shows the SAMCAM's instrument field of view as the spacecraft approaches and then moves away from the asteroid Bennu's surface. The rehearsal brought the spacecraft through the first 2 maneuvers of the sampling event to a point approximately 65 meters above the surface before backing the spacecraft away. These images were recorded over a 10-minute span from 120 meters above the surface down to 65 meters above the surface. The spacecraft's sampling arm is visible in the central part of the frame, and the relatively clear dark patch of Bennu's sample site is visible in the later images. The large dark boulder that the spacecraft approaches during the sequence is 13 meters long. That one right there. The spacecraft will travel all the way to the asteroid's surface during its first sample collection attempt, scheduled for August the 25th. During this event, OSIRIS-REx's sampling mechanism will touch Bennu's surface for approximately 5 seconds, fire a charge of pressurized nitrogen to disturb the surface, and then collect a sample before the spacecraft backs away. And the spacecraft is scheduled to return back to Earth on September the 24th of 2023. Pretty cool stuff.
It's amazing.
And that'll be my topic for what's up in space this week.
So that's pretty interesting, that craft, how they can, because I'm assuming that the the gravity on Mars must be quite different, obviously, than this here. So that little 4-inch blade,
Mm,
or 4-foot blade rather, that's on that um, unit, to be able to have enough wind
enough lift.
propulsion underneath it to lift that thing off
Mm.
the surface. Because is Mars not a heavier gravitational pull than we are?
No,
No,
lighter.
well, Mars is lighter, but it only
Oh, it's
has
lighter.
1% of the atmosphere that we have as well. So to get any lift at all, it's going to be tough. So it's going to have to
Yeah,
spin at a very fast RPM, like 3 or 4,000 RPM. That's what these blades are going to turn at.
yeah,
So
What I was curious about, no pun intended, curiosity, is normally a helicopter, you think the pad would be on the top of the rover. Here they got this thing mounted on the bottom. What are they going to do? Set it on the ground and drive away and then fly it up, maybe?
yeah, it's I don't know whether they're going to lower it down like first from like they did with the Curiosity rover. They actually lowered it down from a set of rockets, right?
Yeah.
Lowered down on the crane and touched the surface. Once it touched the surface, it knew that it touched, and it broke all the cables and flew away. How they're going to get that piece down? Maybe it's another crane underneath the rover to get that piece underneath them. Not sure.
Yeah.
I'd like to look that up
And
and find out.
maybe before the rover lands, they're going to drop the helicopter and fly it out,
Yeah, could
and
be.
then in the rover part.
Yeah, it's
But I
going to be.
just, like I said, it was kind of funny to look at and go, why would you mount a helicopter on the bottom of a rover?
Yeah, it doesn't seem quite logical, but
Hey, I have one in my truck, but it's only because I ran it over.
is that where rover comes from? Ran over?
Maybe so. Yeah.
uh-oh. Uh-oh. It's going to be one of them shows.
Oh, that's good.
Can't get rid of these pictures. So then we're going to start here with Mike. Anyway, pretty interesting stuff that's happening all around. Lots of discoveries and lots of astronomers picking away at stuff. As I close these images, get them out of my face. There. So yeah, that's our first talk for what's up in space this week, and we'll hopefully have enough time to do another one next week. So we'll carry on now with Mike, I guess. Let's click over to Mike.
Oh,
And Mike's going to give us a talk about
the goodie box.
the goodie box. So we'll get you to. You don't even have to share your screen if you don't want to, but I'm clicking on
Yeah,
it.
it won't let me.
Okay. Oh, won't. Uh-oh.
No,
Do you need to?
I was going to put up my MacGyver poster, but
Oh. Well, you should be
I guess
allowed
I'll
to.
wait.
We're missing the helmet.
Yeah, we
Yeah,
are.
I'm going
Put the helmet on.
pick up the monitor and turn it around, I guess. But yeah, for some reason it won't let me share. Oh, well. Similarly, I don't need to share my screen to show you what I'm going to talk about tonight. So a little bit of a story behind this. It's called a goodie box. When I was growing up, my parents built their own boat, and I had to, because I was the youngest, I had to go with them everywhere in the river. They wouldn't let me stay home, kind of thing. So wherever they went, I had to be dragged along with them. And some of the things you pick up or notice when you're the only kid in a boat, and your parents are enjoying the river, drinking their beer. I don't know how they ever found their way around, but they did. My mother always, when Dad would need something, my mother would always have it, and I couldn't understand why does she have it, and he's always looking for it. What it was whenever he purchased something, what would happen is he'd buy a package of something, he would use one and leave it laying down. My mother would scoop it up, and she'd throw it in this box. It was basically an old tackle box that she had taken some paint and wrote "goodie" on it. And this is where this goodie box came from. He'd buy a package of fuses, take one out, then he'd blow a fuse and wonder, where the hell I know I got fuses somewhere. Well, my mother would always have those fuses because she knew he needed them. And whatever she thought he'd need in the future, she put in a goodie box, right? So it got to the point where then Dad wouldn't even look around anymore and go, Annabelle, get me something out of your goodie box, right? And so that's where I got this whole idea of the goodie box when I got into astronomy. And after, like all of us, we buy parts and, pieces, and we buy things that we don't need. When I was, trying to look at building my own EQ5 mount, I was buying broken parts and collected them all. And then I'd finally built them out, and I had all these spare parts and pieces. And I thought, something, I can make myself a goodie box out of that stuff. Because what happens is we would go to a star party, inevitably somebody is missing something or needs something. So I took one of my plastic containers here. I call it my goodie box. And this is storing parts that you probably never think of having with you when you go to a star party or out doing a public observing. And all of a sudden somebody drops in the sand, say the little knob to screw in to hold your eyepiece, right? And that piece is now gone missing. Well, when it comes to stuff like that, we'll go to box number 1, which is this one. You open it up, and every possible knob that you can think of, every possible screw that you can think of, right down to rubber nibs, eyepiece caps for both ends, the caps for your telescope to shove in your 1.25 or 2-inch, nylon washers, rubber bands, rubber plugs, like I said, right on down to the little knobs that you use to screw your eyepieces in, all different threads, different sizes. If somebody loses one, I've got one. When I talked about my mother saving my father's fuses and stuff like that, look at that. Big box of inline fuses, both sizes, large and small. So, if somebody blows a fuse in their, say their dew heater system or something like that, I've got spare fuses with me. I also have a toolbox full of every little Allen key and screwdriver and wrench you can imagine, right? Little pieces of Teflon and rubber, some extra, this one here is an extra red dot finder mount with double sticky tape, so I can rig up a red dot finder for somebody in the field. Box number 3 is part of this. Believe it or not, I think this one holds buttercup, Paul.
Right.
I could be mistaken, but I think it holds a buttercup. But there's extra, again, red dot finder mounts, different types of bases. If somebody breaks the red dot finder or forgets to bring it, spare batteries I keep in there, different sizes. All the spare batteries and stuff that you would need for your red dot finder or your Telrad, good things like that. This one here, if someone wanted to do some DSLR photography, but they don't have a way to mount their camera on their equatorial mount, this piece here will unscrew and actually strap to the arm where your counterweight goes. You can mount your camera on top, and now if they want, this will follow the mount, and you can do wide field astrophotography. Anybody that's got a DSLR can mount to this, and away you go. You can have your fun doing the night sky. So, this is just a few of the things in the goodie box that are always here. They go on every trip with me. They're always in the truck or in my trailer when I go out to a star party. This one here I keep in the goodie box because I thought that's the coolest thing. I actually found it at an antique store. And what it is a 12-volt plug into your battery or battery box hairdryer. And that acts to take the dew off your your lens or whatever, or your mirror. And it's always in the goodie box. If you forget to bring some dew heaters and stuff, we can make the dew go away. So, there's extra eyepiece adapters, 1.25 to 2-inch, the 2-inch to 1.25. I even have a 0.975 to 1.25 in there. A few extra dovetails. And you'd think, why would you have a dovetail? Believe it or not, Roger Petrie showed up at Fundy National Park, and he did not have a dovetail on his Smith-Cassegrain telescope. And we found a way that with a dovetail that I had to rig it up, and it worked for him for the weekend. It's just every astronomer should save every part of everything you ever take apart. Before you throw the pieces away, take every screw out of it, every bolt out of it, every washer. Save the bearings if you have to. Someday it'll come in handy. And you put it in a goodie box like this, and you always have it with you. There's the extra spray bottles for the mosquito, the bug killers. Thing that we keep, right? Here's that's an extra cords for dew heaters. That battery charger, Chris, that I always borrow from you?
Yes.
Guess what? I found it in my goodie box. I should have looked there first, I guess, right? And
So not
Well-
only can he keep his things in his goodie box,
Yeah,
Exactly.
keep my stuff
in
too.
his goodie box.
I now have your battery charger in my goodie box.
Yeah, I'm gonna watch those orange feet in my telescope. I know that.
That's and then on top of all that, one of those multi-tools that you can buy at Canadian Tire. It has saws, knives, scissors, pliers, the whole 9 yards. You buy one of those, stick it in your goodie box, and guess
Great green
what? You want
special.
a tool. You can make that work for anything. As long as you've got pliers and a knife, we can make it work. So that's the goodie box. That's where it comes from. That's the uses for it. And like I said, it's the best thing that I've ever done. I've helped out a lot of people, including myself, because I lose stuff too. I just go into the goodie box and I can find something that'll work. So
Typical Mike. Give me a roll of duct tape and a Swiss Army knife, and I can rule the world. He says. And if you can't fix it with duct tape, you haven't used enough, right? If you can't
Make it
fix it,
fluorescent orange duct tape and you got a deal.
if you can't fix it with duct tape, you haven't used enough.
That's right.
So just remember, if you're an astronomer, put together a goodie box. You'll never regret it. Trust me.
Good stuff. Absolutely true. And Mike has bailed us out many times. I know that number of times I've been at star parties, forgotten pieces and parts and screws and stuff. And Mike, just a sec, I got one of those. I'm sure I do. And sure enough, yeah. And it makes sure I keep going back to where were we? Down Fundy. The park down there. Can't think of the name of it right now.
You're talking about the Barlow?
No, I'm talking about the cardboard dew shield.
Oh, yeah. We were Livingston Lake.
Lake
Huh?
Livingston.
Lake Livingston, yeah.
Livingston Lake. Yeah.
So
Yeah.
I forgot my dew shield for this guy back here, this 11-inch Celestron telescope. And a dew shield is just a piece that sits on the front of your telescope. It's almost like a crazy carpet kind of material. And those who don't know what crazy carpets were, it's like a big plastic. I shouldn't be giving away my age here. Anyway,
We should have kept it, eh?
Poor man's fled.
So I forgot that, and it was very important that I had something to keep my telescope from collecting dew. So Mike went inside this building and grabbed a cardboard box and rolled of duct tape and made me a nice big tube that I slid over the front of the telescope and got me through the whole weekend. So it looked really nice. All these guys with really nice setups all around me, and I had this really big redneck cardboard box in the front of mine. But it certainly kept the dew away that night. Worked well.
Was the
So
Jethro
not only do you
Bodine
want to-
dew shield.
Yeah. Not only do you want a goodie box, but you also want a guy like Mike around that can do that kind of stuff for you as well. Thanks, Mike. Perfect. So from there, we're going to go to Paul. Paul's going to give us our Rosanna's fun fact. Just a second, Paul.
Oh, yeah.
I need a second. Get my phone.
Yes.
I still haven't found a speaker for this damn thing, but we'll have to see what we can do later on.
Bum, 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 bum.
I think I got it ready to play. So are you ready
right.
for?
Rosanna's Fun Fact.
Perfect.
We
Thanks,
love that.
Thanks to Peter for that.
We love
Oh,
that.
we love that part. That's the best part of the show.
All right. Well, good evening, everybody. And you know what? It's time for Rosanna's fun fact. And this week, it's kind of a neat one that she sent along. So she says, "Hi, Paul. So during this stay-at-home moment in time, I decided to brush up on some of my Shakespeare. Who knows why?" And I thought to myself, "Yeah, I mean, who's Shakespeare?" Anyway, so of course, the next thought was, hey, I wonder how many, if any, astronomical references are in Shakespeare's plays. So interestingly, she discovered that in her latest book, that the play Venus and Adonis, and I think there they are, Venus and Adonis, likely too risque for high school English classes, appeared in a print in 1593, and that's the print that you're seeing there. So mythology and its heavenly connections seem to always intrigue and capture audiences. London's theaters were closed that year and for much of the following year because of the outbreak of the plague. So, kind of fitting, I guess.
Yeah.
So like many of us, Shakespeare had time on his hands. So this play proved to be one of the most often reprinted work during his lifetime, but on with the astronomical connections. So this girl here, Megan Nichols. So while reading and Googling, Rosanna came across a wonderful, nerdy student, and her name is Megan Nichols, who also was intrigued with finding out how much astronomy may have influenced Shakespeare's writing. Although some people might argue that astrology was more in keeping with the times, it turns out that this period of history was a scientifically exciting time. Shakespeare lived from 1564 to 1616, and it was an exciting time to be alive as there were several huge scientific discoveries during this time. This included the invention of the telescope, Kepler's laws of motion, the Copernican model of the solar system, and Tycho Brahe's first attempts at correcting the star charts. So clearly, astronomy was extremely important during this period. And Megan also posted her blog, a great little video, which outlining the plays and the change in Shakespeare from following astrology to following astronomy and the science of his time. So, if you just Google Megan Nichols, and then you can find her little video and stuff. So Shakespeare, who would have thought? Who would have thought? To be or not to be?
Yeah.
I think that's Shakespeare. I don't know.
Yeah,
Anyway, that was this week's.
Rosanna's Fun Fact.
Guys.
Thank you so much, Rosanna, for that.
Maybe we'll put that request out here. If somebody wants to donate us a speaker, we're more than happy to accept it.
Yes, indeed.
I think I got one in my goodie box.
Perfect.
Oh my!
Thanks, Paul. Oh, we lost Paul. You're
Easy
still there,
come,
Mike?
easy go.
He'll come
To
back.
be or not to be.
That was it. Well, as Paul's making his way back, all he's got to do really is go find the link again, and he'll be back in. Maybe it's a good time to bring up a couple of photo submissions while we're waiting. I'm sure he'll be back because he's got the main topic tonight. He better come back. There he is. Oh, okay.
I pushed the wrong button.
He did. I did that
Yeah.
last week. Your turn.
That stuff kind of happens,
Oh,
doesn't it?
well, yeah.
Oh,
I'm
my
just
good
gonna go
golly,
ahead.
Miss Molly.
We're all set to go ahead, Paul, with your talk. So.
Oh, did you already introduce it?
I didn't. No, hang on. I got to get on to click on.
He's gone again.
Oh, he's gone again. He's playing hide and seek.
Easy come, easy go.
Stop doing that.
Put a piece of tape over that little X there, Paul, so you don't hit that button.
Oh, I'm going to find the one that I X'd out of so I can get out of it so I'm safe. There, okay, I think I'm in now.
Okay.
All right, so
the glitch-free show, eh?
all right, I'm going to share
this is
my
more
screen. Let's see what happens. Good golly, let's see what happens. Starts. Let's see where it goes first. All right, so can I put that over here and then do it from there? Let's find out.
Okay.
We're going to find out. Share.
There,
Okay, so you should be able to see my my blank screen.
we do.
Okay, so let's start. Assuming that you talked about star trails.
I did. I think that's what you were going to talk about.
That's what I'm going to talk about. Okay, so I'm going to make this kind of as brief as I can because star trails really are a very, very simple thing to do. So the picture that you're seeing is a star trail that I took in my backyard, probably a couple of years ago now. I don't even have the data for it anymore, but that's the picture. And if you look at the very, very center, that little tiny dot, that's actually Polaris. So in order to get a star trail that looks like that, all you got to do is be able to find the North Star because everything rotates around the North Star, almost like Copernicus, I guess. Hey, the world didn't rotate around him, but I thought that it did. So let's go. I'm going to show you a time lapse as to how star trails actually work. Whoop, I'm on the wrong screen. Just one sec. This is all going to have to be shifted over this way. There we go. Okay, so you can see that little video. That's not
Yes,
moving
Ken.
yet?
That's
Okay.
not moving yet. Yep.
So if you look right in the very center right there, that's Polaris. So what happens is, of course, at nighttime, just a brief little idea of how the sky moves, is the sky doesn't move, we do. We move from west to east, but it appears like everything moves from east to west. So when you look at the sun, it rises in the east, sets in the west, same as the moon, and so on and so forth. So if you look up in the right-hand corner, you're going to find that all the stars are actually moving from right to left. So I'm just going to play the little video. It's very short. So you see how everything's moving in almost in circular motion, but what in the center isn't moving is Polaris. It's actually moving, but too small for us to notice here on Earth with our eyes. So that's basically what happens. So when you take a star trail, what you're doing is you're taking a picture, and then you're waiting for a few seconds, and then you're taking another picture, then you're waiting for a few seconds, and you gather up a couple hundred of them. So if you look at the time that's actually that this was actually shot, it took 7 seconds to see that video, but it took me almost 2 hours to collect the data to show you a 7-second little clip like that. So when you're doing this kind of photography, you can use it not only for making star trails, but you can also use it for making time-lapse videos. So if you're going to do a time-lapse video, just make sure that you're going to be out there for hours and hours and hours, because just to show like a 5-minute time-lapse video, it'll take you pretty much all night to gather the data that you need to do that. Star trails, not so much, because star trails don't take all that much data. So if you look at this image again, this is the star trail that I got from taking what looks to be a video like that, but it's a series of pictures. Now, if you don't want to get that flush down the toilet look, it's what I call it. If you don't want to get that circular look, then you can actually move your camera off to the side a little bit, and then you can get much longer trails.
Nice.
So right over here, so you can see how that's starting to streak. So the further that you go west or east from that northern part of the sky, then your trails will get longer, because like anything else that's circular, that moves in a circular motion, the further out you get, the longer the lines are, the longer the distance is. So you can get some pretty dramatic things just by simply moving the camera a little bit, if you want to get a different angle on your trails, or a different effect on your trails. So when we were looking at that sky a moment ago right here, this is the first thing you're going to notice if you get out to a dark sky site. And Mike and I actually did this. We went to Fun Day for the very first time, and Mike was listening to me, and I don't know why he ever did, but he was listening to me one night, and I was saying, okay, oh, I know why, because Mike can't see Polaris before anybody else can. It takes him a while to see Polaris at night. So so I said, Mike, I got Polaris. I'm locked in on it. It's right here. So he said, where is it? It's right there. So he did the same thing. Well, you know what? It was my first night in the dark sky, and I couldn't even see Polaris because there were so many stars. It's like, oh my good God. So the two of us were sitting there, not even pulled or lined on the right star. So if you ever go for the first time in a dark sky, don't be surprised that you'll see a gazillion stars, and it's hard to make out the constellations. But in any event, having said that, so when you look at this picture you see now, that's kind of what it looks like. And it's hard to tell what the heck you're even looking at other than a bunch of stars. So there is Polaris, which is the North Star. And of course, that is the very beginning of the Little Dipper, or Ursa Minor. And then if you look up over here in this corner, there's the Big Dipper, or Ursa Major. So if you live in the city, you can see these things, because all the other stars you can't see because the skies are so poor. But when you get into the dark skies, you start to see stuff like this. So it's really, really nice to be able to learn your sky a little bit, like Chris is always preaching to us. So that's basically the sort of beginning idea of what you're going to be looking at. So in order to get star trails, you need some equipment. So the first thing that you're going to need is a camera. I'm going to recommend the DSLR because it's basically what we learned on. You can do it with other cameras, but this one just makes it a lot easier. So you get yourself a DSLR or a camera that you can set to manual. That's the most important thing. Then you're going to need what they call an intervalometer. An intervalometer is just basically, it's a very simple remote control that allows you to do pauses between your photographs. I'll show you how to use that in a minute. You're going to need a tripod. The sturdier the better. But if you already have a tripod and it's a little shaky, then all you need to do is to take a little plastic bag, fill it up with some rocks that are on the ground, hang it from the very center of it, and that'll anchor your tripod for you and make it a lot more sturdy for this kind of photography, because you don't want the wind shaking your camera, because that'll ruin your shots. I won't get into the ball head. You're going to need batteries. And make sure that you've got lots of batteries. If you don't have the ability to plug your camera into an electronic source, especially in the winter, because if you're out in the winter and you're using batteries, the cold will deplete your batteries so much quicker than it does in the summertime. So make sure you got lots of batteries. And if you can afford one, or if you want one, and they're not that expensive, get yourself what they call a battery grip. And with that, you can actually put 2 batteries in it, and then you're absolutely fine for the whole night, whether it's cold or not. The battery grips work really, really nicely, and I'll show you that in a minute. And the memory. Don't forget the memory, because the worst thing, and even the daytime, when I run out to take pictures of birds or landscapes or whatever, I don't know how many times I've driven 20 minutes to get somewhere just to realize, oh my gosh, I don't have a memory stick. You can't do anything without memory. So, so make sure that you have your memory. That's very, very important. Okay, now I'm going to get into the camera. I'm going to switch back to live for this part. Let me just get to stop screen share. And I should be back. Am I back?
You're back.
Okay. All right, so I'm going to show you the rig. I may have to stand up to do this properly. And how quickly we do this. So I was out today, actually, and I'll show you those little pictures in a second. And what I wanted to do, what I did there was I went out to, let me just get this up here a little higher. There we go. I went out to basically scout out the area that I wanted to shoot. So, and I've got a few pictures of that, actually. Let me just see if I can just do that briefly and show you what I did. Screen share. And there, share. And I'm just going to scack right through them really cool. Oh, there we go. Oh, that's one of them. There. So the first thing I did is I took my little camera outside, and I popped it on the ground because I wanted to do a star trail, but I wanted to have something interesting in the foreground. So I put my camera on the ground, knowing that I wanted to get my observatory and maybe part of my shed with the all sky camera in it. So I put it on the ground nice and low because I wanted to see what it looked like looking upwards. And then so basically from the ground perspective, that's what it looks like. So you can see that I've got something in the foreground. Because when you're doing star trails, you want to make it an interesting shot. Just to see star trails is okay, but to actually have something in the foreground to give you something to anchor to, it's really quite interesting. So the shot that I was going for is right there. So you'll see, and excuse me for that poor picture, but I was just my cell phone taking a picture of the back of my camera. But you can see I'll get the observatory in it. I've got the walkway leading to the observatory, and I've got the all sky camera up there. But more importantly, it's all of that blue area up there is going to be all done in the star trails. So that was my plan, to go out and do this. So I'll do the stop share again, and I should be back. All right.
Sure.
So basically the equipment that you need is what we just talked about. Is just a simple camera, an intervalometer, like this one. So all you're going to do here with this intervalometer is, with all the dials that are in there, all you're going to do is you're going to set the amount of time you want between your shots. So if I'm shooting, say 30 seconds, that I may only want a 10-second delay between my shots. So the first thing I'm going to punch in there is 10 seconds. That's my delay. That's my delay time. The second thing I'm going to punch in there is how long do I want my images. So typically 30 seconds is actually a good enough run to get a start on your trails. So then I'll punch in 30 for that. And then finally, how many pictures do I want to take in total? And then from there, I can put in as much as 99 with this, which won't be enough. So if that's the case, you just leave it on 0, and then it'll just go until you decide to tell it to stop. So basically, that's what you need. If your camera doesn't have that kind of thing built into it, a lot of the current cameras do. But if it doesn't, an intervalometer you can buy online for $40, $50 probably on the outside, and you'll be able to set up your shots for that. And that's the same thing that you would use for star trails. So that's that. Then we're dealing with the camera. So it's very simple how you set your camera up. The first thing you're going to want to do is if you have a lens that has stabilization on it, you want to turn it off because you're going to be sitting on your tripod, right? So if you're sitting on your tripod, if you've got your stabilizer on, the electronics are going to try to make a movement because it thinks it has to, because that stabilizer is designed to take the shake out of your hands when you're shooting pictures. So make sure you turn your stabilizer off. The second thing you want to do is to make sure that your focus is in manual. You don't want to do anything automatically, because when you're doing this kind of photography, automatic really doesn't work. So make sure that your stabilizer's off and that your lens is in manual focus. Then you're going to go to your settings. You're going to want to put your camera on M for manual. Can you see that?
Yep.
Is that focus, or am I too close?
No,
There we go.
Good, yeah.
Yeah, put it on M for manual because you want to do everything manually on this. So now that you've got that all set up, then your camera, you're going to want to turn your camera on. I don't have a card in the camera. That's okay. So what I'm going to do next.
Your card.
I forgot it, you see? Here, just a second. Smart ass. There. So now I've got a camera in the card. So when you look at the back, now we want to do our settings, okay? And I don't know if you can see that or not. Is that too bright?
Just hang on just for a second, Paul. I'm just trying to see if, Mike, are you seeing any choppiness on YouTube?
Just a very, very little bit, not much.
Okay, just, yeah.
Okay. All right. So basically for the settings, you want to take your, which is your device for your shutter speed, and you want to push it all the way over to bulb. Because when you have it on bulb, then basically you control how long you want the camera to go for. And by putting in bulb, when you set up your intervalometer is going to basically tell the camera how long the shots are. And in this case, we told it 30 seconds. So you put it on bulb, excuse me. Then you're going to go over to your ISO. And you could put your white balance too on automatic white balance if you want to. That'll work just fine. And then you're going to go to your ISO, which basically is the sensitivity. And you can start anywhere between, say, 200 and 400 for star trails if the sky is kind of bright. If you got a really, really dark sky, you might even want to take that ISO and put it up to 8 or even 1600, depending on how good the sensor on your camera is. Because again, what happens if you're doing this in the summertime, the camera will heat up, and you can get some video noise on your screen, which is all those little white pixels, and sometimes it might look a little grainy, that kind of stuff. But in any event, like what you just might want to experiment with that a little bit. But typically 200 to 400 is a good starting range for that. Once you've got that set up, and then what you're going to want to do is focus. So focusing is really quite simple. So all you're going to do is go to your live view, which I'm doing right here. And again, like I say, this is not I should have put this on a different thing, but just give me a second here. I'm just going to try to auto. Yeah, it's still a little hard to see. I'm going to change my f-stop. There we go. There we go. So what you're going to do is you're going to take and put your camera on live view, and then on the live view, you've got that little square that goes right there, hey? So you want to put that in the center of your screen, and then you're going to want to find the brightest object you can see in the sky. And in the north sky, if you are going to shoot Polaris as your center point, Polaris is pretty bright, so you should be able to focus right on Polaris. And you want to put Polaris right in the center of that square. The other thing that you're going to do, which I forgot to mention, is your f-stop. So on this lens here that I'm using is a wide angle lens. And the wider the angle of the lens, the better, because you're going to get a much wider swath of the sky. You don't want to use a zoom lens to do this. You want to use a wide angle as possible. And most of the kit cameras that you get, the kit lens is anywhere, I think it's usually 18 to 55. So just dial it right back to 18 millimeters. That's a very nice wide angle. And then the other thing is you want to make sure that your sensitivity should be on f. And most kit lenses are f5.6 or f4. So make sure it's at the highest sensitivity as possible, because that's opening up the camera's lens as wide as it can to collect as much light, because that's so important to do with this. So make sure that those things are done. Once that's done, then you go to your, if your camera has it marked, and I'm going to see if you can see it on mine, but there's an infinity mark, that little, looks like a figure 8 right there. So that's what they call infinity. So put your camera lens before you start this up to infinity, which means it's going to focus on the furthest thing out. But that doesn't mean that it's focused perfectly, because usually it's not. Usually infinity is a good rough get you there almost, but you still have to fine tune a bit. So once you've got it set to there, then look into that little square, press your 5x zoom, and then go ahead and make that little bit of a fine focus. And then you'll see it nice and clear. Once you've got it good on 5x, do it again to 10x zoom, and then really dial it in. So what you're going to do when you're looking at a star is you're going to dial it past focus, and you're going to dial it before focus. So what's going to happen is the star is going to be big, and as you get closer to focus, it'll get smaller, smaller, smaller. When you go past focus, it'll start to get bigger again. So then you start coming back the other way until it starts to get bigger. And then what you're looking for is the very smallest that you can make that star. Once you've got that done, where it's really, really small like that, that's all you have to do. Your camera's in focus. All your settings are great. You're going to take that intervalometer. You're going to press the start button, and then you're going to go sit down and watch the night sky, because now that intervalometer is telling your camera, take a 30-second picture. Take a 6-second pause. Take a 30-second picture. Take a 6-second pause. And it'll do that until you decide that you've got enough data collected on your camera. And that's it. That's how you get the data. And if I'm going fast, I will answer questions certainly as we go. Now, once you've got the data, whoops, here's the next part. So I'm going to share my screen again. And hopefully I can do this without buggering it up, but we'll see. Let's get out of that. And there. And I just got to pull up some data here. Where is it? Process stack. There it is. Okay. So, can you see my screen there now with all the little pictures on it?
No. Are you sharing your screen?
There you go.
There you go.
Okay, so basically at the end of the night, after you've done all of this stuff and your camera has stopped, you're going to pull the chip out of the camera, and then you're going to have all of these pictures. Look at them all. After you've done all this stuff, and
Sorry.
Oh, I hear myself again. And then you're going to have all of these pictures. Look at them all. I'm going to wait for myself to stop talking.
There you go.
Okay, so so you're going to have all these pictures. So these are all the pictures that you took. So for example, if I just click on one, so there's a picture that we took. That's our first one. That's our second one. That's our third one. That's our fourth one, and so on down the line. So now we have the pictures. So what we need to do now, and this is assuming that you have Photoshop and Bridge. Usually, if you have Photoshop, you've got Bridge. So I'm going to open up my Bridge right here, and I've already loaded all the pictures in to Bridge, and this is where all my photographs are. These are all the pictures I took of the sky, right? So what you're going to do first is you're going to click on just one of them, because the part that you're going to do here is the important part. You're going to take one picture and you're going to fix it up so that it's really, whoops, I'm sitting down. Doesn't matter there anyway. Okay, so you're going to fix it up so that that particular picture looks really good. So you're going to want to go in there, and let's say we're going to open that up in, open that up in Camera Raw. And then, so there's one of our pictures, right? So what we're going to do here is we're just going to play around with it. I want to make the clarity a little bit better. Maybe I want to bring the highlights up a bit so those stars are really accenting more. Maybe I want just a little more color in there just to get it nice and blue, so it's a really, really pretty background. And then maybe I want to go over here and just take away some of that noise, because remember we talked about a 30-second image on a dark picture. It's going to be relatively noisy on a night that's hot, because your camera is going to heat up, and so will your sensor. So this here slider here is just basically, it's a smoothing, it's a noise reduction, so we can smooth out. You're probably not seeing it on the screen, but anyway, I'm smoothing out my picture so all that grain is gone, because I want a nice crisp picture. Once I got all that done, I say I'm done. And then I'm going to hit my Control A, and that selects all the pictures that I put in there. I've done that thing. It selects all the pictures I put in. Then I'm going to just click on any one of the pictures, and I'm going to go to, it's in here somewhere, Develop Settings, and I'm going to go Paste Settings. And then what happens when I paste settings, this little box comes up with all these checks on it. It's just saying, do you want to do all the same things that you just did to this picture to all the other pictures? And I do. So I'm just going to hit OK. And then what it'll do, it's going to go through there and it's going to make all those changes to every one of the photographs that are in there so that they're all consistent. Every picture is going to be exactly the same in terms of that adjustment, so that when you stack these all together, it's a very, very consistent picture, not light spots, dark spots, and all that. Very consistent. Once you've got that done, then you're just going to take this, and I'm just going to turn on a program I want to show you that I'm real excited about. And it's called, whoops, shrink it down here for a second. I'll get it over there so you can see it. Come on. There we go. So it's called Star Stacks, and this is a free download, and this is really, really cool. So what this is a star stacking software that's designed for star trails. So once you've gathered all your data, you put it in the computer, you've taken one picture, you fixed it all up nice so it looks beautiful, then you've spread that throughout the whole line of all the photos. Then all you're going to do is grab those photos and just hover over that little thing and drop the images in here. Ping. So there are all the images that we just took and did all that magic to. So when you go through them, if you find some that have star trails, let me just make this big now. Not star trails, my apology. Let me just blow this up so you can see it. If you find some that have airplanes going through them, satellites going through them, you can just kind of have a look around and just keep on clicking on them randomly. And you'll find usually in the run of a night, especially now with our friend Elon Musk, we're going to see a lot of these things go on in our photography. Let me just find, I know there's some on this one. I know there
Not
is.
many planes lately, though, for sure.
No, the planes aren't around, so this is a nice time for photography. There, right there. You see there? So there's a trail. So all I'm going to do is I'm just going to click on that one. I'm just going to take that one out. So I know the one before, it's probably got some on it coming into the scene. There it is. I'm going to take that one out. And probably the one after it. Yep, so I'm just going to take it out. So basically, you just go through and you find all the ones that have star trails or star trails, airplane trails or satellite trails, that kind of stuff. Those are the things that are going to make the lines on your pictures. So I've just taken those ones out. I know there's another one that'll actually go this way, but I want to show you how this works first and show the effectiveness of this. So once I've got my images in there, I've scanned through them, I've gotten rid of the ones that are bad, I'm keeping the ones that are good. All you have to do, you see these 4 buttons on top? One is a file. That's the one that you press to open up to put your files in if you want to go find them. All I did was just keep both softwares open, just click and grab, drag and drop into the thing, so I didn't have to do that. And then this button over here on the end is called Start Process. Start Process, and this is magic. Watch what happens. And it makes the star trails. What it's doing, it's live time stacking every one of those pictures on top of one another and giving you your star trail.
Cool.
Very, very cool. Very, very fast. no time at all. All you got to do is get your images into that program, that software, and up it goes. Now you can see down this side here, we've got that another little line going through it. So if I wanted to, I could go back and find these particular frames and erase them if I wanted to. But once I got it all said and done, then I just go up here to where it says Save As, and then I'm going to save this as Star Trails. And then I'm going to just throw it on my desktop, save, and save. Image is saved, and that's it. So now I go to my desktop and get rid of all this stuff. I got a lot of stuff open here. And it's probably on the other one. Murphy's Law. Star Stacks. There we are. I'll just throw it over here so you can see it. And there's your picture.
Nice.
Just that simple.
Nice.
Cool. So let me just get this open up again so I can find me. There we are. So that's it. So it really doesn't get any easier than that to do a star trail. And I know I blew through it quickly, but I wanted to show you how once you get used to a little bit of this, how actually easy. There we go. It is to do a star trail.
Excellent. Thanks, Paul.
Yeah.
Good talk there. So, I mean, even if people wanted to go back and review the comments that you made later on, they can go back to see this video. It'll be up on YouTube within the hour. It should go back up. So, yeah, and actually on Facebook Live too. It'll be posted there tonight. So, thanks, Paul.
Yeah,
That's,
you're welcome.
Great information for people who like to do star trails. Go out and give it a try. At least you're underneath the sky while you're doing it.
I just downloaded Star Stacks and installed it while Paul was talking.
Oh, nice.
It's just that simple.
It's that simple.
That's cool. Okay, let's go to photo submissions maybe, because if we did have a couple of entries that came in. If I can find them here, I've got to share my screen first of all. So I want to remind people first of all that they can send their photos to Sunday Night Astronomy Show at gmail.com, all one word. And if you send them to that address, we will take a look at them and we'll bring them up on our page for the Sunday night show. So
before we go too far, Chris, we got a question from Ben asking Paul, how many hours of exposure did it take for those star trails?
The one that I just used for demonstration. Am I? Just a second. Let me just.
Yeah, you're up.
Am I? Okay. There we go. The one that I used there for that demonstration, it took me almost 2 hours to get a 7-second video. So again, if you just do the math, if you're going to be shooting or playing back your videos at 30 frames a second, so that means every second of video is 30 pictures. So you can just do the math. If you want a 5-minute video, take 5 minutes, divide it by 30 seconds, and then you'll figure out how many pictures that you're going to need to show that kind of a video.
Okay.
Awesome.
Perfect.
Yeah.
Thanks. Okay. I was sharing my screen, I think. Oh, not that one. I want this one. Ooh, way off into infinity. Yeah. Photos. Yes, that's what I was looking at. So I think we've got one here. First of all, from Chris Burke of the Whirlpool Galaxy. So Chris sent me this today. He said, hey there, just wanted to pass along a shot of the Whirlpool Galaxy I captured last night. This is a stacked image of 35 exposures, 1 minute, 15 seconds each, and then some editing in Photoshop. Still learning the editing part, but small steps. Great work, Chris. Nice
Oh,
capture.
yeah, there it is. Okay, yeah, beautiful.
Yeah, well done.
Lots of detail.
Yes, it's fantastic. Wow. How long did it take to do that again? Did he say?
Said 35 exposures at 1 minute and 15 seconds each.
Oh, beautiful. Nice.
Of course, we had a nice night last night or two, so good for.
Yeah, last night the sky was really transparent. So, yeah, the skies were extremely dark. Beautiful job.
Nice job. And we've got another here from Louis McIntyre. And Louis says, "Hi, Chris. This was taken out here in Quispamsis the night after the supermoon. I had to crop it since it's the longest lens I have for my DSLR is 200 millimeter. So another nice shot of the night after the supermoon. Was a really nice supermoon this year. Everybody got out because they thought it was going to be pink, but it wasn't. But anyway, everybody get out. Didn't matter. So
That's got some nice detail on it for a 200 millimeter lens.
it sure does. Yeah.
Absolutely. Did a great job.
Yeah.
I'm assuming you probably use autofocus on it, I think.
Mm,
And yeah, because that's beautiful.
nice job.
Yeah.
Very nice capture. And I got a couple here from Trudy Allman, who's a member of our St. John Astronomy Club. And of course, this past week we had Mars, Saturn, and Jupiter all lined up in our morning sky, which they still are, but we also had a nice waning crescent moon there as well. So Trudy got the waning crescent moon down in the corner. And I'll bring up her second photo here with them all labeled. So there we are, Mars, Saturn, and Jupiter.
Parade of planets.
Parade of planets, yeah. And this is going to be quite a while before we have this parade like this again in our sky. We're going to have the moon again, of course, next month. Mars, Saturn, and Jupiter are going to be there. They're going to be a little bit farther apart, but the moon is not going to sit quite as pretty as it does right here in this line. This will be quite a while before we'll see this lineup of planets like this in the morning sky again.
Yeah.
So really nice to get out, and those who would get out and get a chance to take a look at it, it was really worth it for sure.
It's nice too. I noticed on that photo to see the crescent on the other side. So
Yeah.
where it's winding up its time, it's beautiful.
Nice capture. Thanks, Trudy. Okay, so let's go to, I guess the next part of it would be what's up in the sweet sky. So we're at 9 o'clock. What do you think, guys? Should we go ahead for another 5 minutes? Or?
Oh, keep going. Yeah.
Okay, good enough.
We're having way too much fun to finish.
That's great.
Let me click
just
here
getting
and make
started.
sure I don't click the wrong one. There we go. Every time. I didn't want to pull a Paul there tonight. Okay, so let's take a look at what's up in this week's sky, courtesy of Stellarium. So this is the program called Stellarium. If anybody hasn't seen it, you can download it from stellarium.org, STELLARIUM. It's an excellent program for the beginner, intermediate astronomer, whatever. It gives you an opportunity to set up the sky for your location at night. So all you do is download the program, then you go in here to the location window. In the location window from here, I would type St. John, and it'll come up as St. John, Canada. For my location, for wherever your location is, just type in your string here. Or you can get the location from your network connection right there on your Wi-Fi. And then once it comes up, you can set it up for a particular time. I set this one up for, I guess this is tomorrow morning. This is the 19th now, right? So let's go back to the 19th then. And this has been counting on time away while we've been sitting here observing. So I'm going to get this window out of the way. I think I can do that by doing this maybe. Maybe I can't get to that bottom one. Well, we'll just have to go with time. So let's take the time back to the 19th at 9:30 roughly. We'll spin around here to our western sky, and we can take a look here, and we can see that this Venus this week continues to blaze away as the evening star in the west during and after twilight, and it's still the third brightest object in our sky behind the sun and our moon, so it's brighter than all the stars we see at night. Venus will visit with the beautiful Pleiades star cluster and the Hyades star cluster, including the reddish star of Aldebaran, which is right in here. So if you zoom in here a little bit, you'll see this nice little cluster of stars called the Pleiades, and they are what we call the Seven Sisters. Pretty little cluster of stars, really beautiful in binoculars. So if you get a chance to get out and take a look at them with just binoculars, actually the best views really are through binoculars or a wide field view, right, Paul? Mike?
Absolutely.
So really, really pretty through binoculars. And then, of course, we're going to have Venus sitting just above it, and between the Venus and the Pleiades and this nice little cluster here we call the Hyades. And there's the reddish star Aldebaran sitting right there. Now, if you put Aldebaran in the same place as our sun, it would swallow Jupiter. That's how big it is. So it's a huge red giant star coming to the end of its life. But anyway, that's what our view is in the evening sky. And right around 9 o'clock. So Venus sets about 11 o'clock now. It's already reached what we call its eastern elongation, so the farthest in the eastern part of the sky it can go. But the ecliptic is still fairly high, the path that the planets make at night. So it's still fairly high in our sky, and it's going to hang around till about mid-May. That's about the end of the cycle for Venus for this time around. So you still get a chance to get out and take a look at it for sure. And it's really a pretty object through binoculars for sure. And even with your naked eye, just to know that you're looking at a planet that bright. And then if we wait another week or so, about the 25th or so, we're going to see the crescent moon join it right in this same area. So I just go ahead a few days. And there's the crescent moon joining Venus and Taurus, Aldebaran. So making, and if I go back a day, actually, we'll see the crescent moon right here with Taurus, or in Taurus right there beside Aldebaran. So really
nice.
So nice opportunities for photos right there. And of course, if we take ourselves back to the right time, we are getting very close to saying goodbye to Orion right now until late fall. Right after darkness begins this week, Orion is still in the southwest in a spring orientation. He's striding down to the right with his 3-star belt nearly horizontal right now. And if you look out to the left, it points off to Sirius, and off to the right, it points to Aldebaran. If we look towards the south and eastern sky, though, we'll see the spring constellations of Leo and Virgo standing pretty prominently in our evening sky. So they're around this way. Here we are to our southern sky. There's big Leo. And here's Virgo, and right in this area, right, Paul?
Ah,
Yes.
Right in there. I can't see. I can't turn on galaxies because I got the screen sharing button here right in my way. I don't think I can. Oh, yes, I can. Look at that. There we go. So let's zoom in here and take a look at now all these little red circles you see. Those are all galaxies.
It's not segments.
So we're looking back into the, and here's a nice set we call Markarian's chain all lined up here. So we're looking back out into one of the arms of the Milky Way, and we're looking out past it really, into the blackness of space. So we, of course, sit inside a cluster of galaxies called the Virgo cluster. And this is what we're appearing at here. So look at the thousands of galaxies and the billions of worlds that sit in there. Beautiful spot to photograph. Coming up on some nice moonless nights right now, so it's a good opportunity to be out and photographing the night sky or looking at it with binoculars. Even binoculars can actually even pick up these 3 right up in here, which are the Leo triplet, right? So
yeah.
there's a Hamburger galaxy, the Leo, and M6566, I believe they are. So look at these, and they can be viewed through binoculars. Now they're going to be a little bit hazy, but you can view them through binoculars. So there's all kinds of galaxies here, and that's why we call this galaxy season. And the guys who like to do these deep sky shots are very happy people right about now.
Oh, yes.
So it's a moonless sky at night this week, which gives us a great opportunity to see the sky as it was meant to be with no light pollution. Step outside and let your eyes dark adapt for a few minutes first, and then the treasures will reveal themselves to you. No telescope is required. So for those with telescopes and binoculars, though, this is galaxy season, a time when we look back into deep space and see the thousands of galaxies and billions of stars that make up our supercluster, one of many. And if we spin around a little bit farther and we take us to, I guess we're going to be looking at Tuesday night, so that would be, I guess, this night. Yeah, we'll go to 21st, I guess, and we'll say early in the morning of the 21st. Right around 2 o'clock. Let's spin around that way. We'll zoom back out again, and we're going to look for Lyra. There's Lyra right here. So here comes the summer triangle, Mike. Hey,
Absolutely.
Deneb and Lyra and Cygnus over here. Deneb, Cygnus, and Vega. Vega and Lyra. And here's the Lyrids right here. So this is the Lyrid meteor shower that's coming up this week. The Lyrid meteor shower should be active in the early morning hours of Wednesday and Thursday. It usually takes a few days for us to pass through the comet dust that was left behind. That's what happens when we have meteor showers. It's dust from a comet, from maybe recent comet or something from long, long ago, and our planet passes through it, and these little particles of dust get zoomed into our atmosphere, and they burn up as we watch them flying across the sky. So this meteor shower is actually predicted falls midway between those 2 mornings for North America, between Wednesday and Thursday morning. But at least the sky will be moonless for sure, so that's always a good thing. We don't have a really bright moon in the sky to wash out these little meteors. Under excellent dark sky conditions, shortly before dawn, you might see about 10 meteors per hour. That doesn't sound like a lot, but if you're out for a few hours, that's 30 meteors, so that's still a pretty good show. The best time is really between midnight and 4 a.m. That's usually when we plow through the thickest part of it as we turn around. And just between this nice moonless night here, moonless morning. Meteor showers are named actually for the radiant from where the meteors seem to appear. In this case, they appear to come from an area near the Harp. So these are the Lyrids. We have the Geminids. We have help me out, guys, Perseids. Lots of them. So they're all named from the constellation of where they seem to come from. So for your best chance, go out after midnight, grab a nice comfy chair and a blanket. Make sure you take a blanket because it does get about 10 degrees cooler when you're standing in one or sitting in one spot than it really is outside. And grab a favorite hot beverage and perhaps a family member. Bring them along with you. And then you can watch one side of the sky and your family member can watch the other side of the sky because sometimes you'll miss them. You'll just have your back to them. We've done that many times, guys. Although they appear to come from Lyra, look all around the sky. Many of them come from all directions. So you want to be as far east as you can from the city if you're looking to, because you want the city in the west to be behind you. So if you can get out to a dark sky site and set up, you'll have better luck for sure. Many come from all directions, and hopefully we'll soon have a talk maybe by one of you guys who can tell us how to capture these using a DSLR.
I was just going to say, if Paul had his camera set up for what he was doing with the star trails, he'd probably catch a few.
Yes.
Yes, that's exactly right.
That's true.
Yep.
Because you're doing about the same thing, I guess, eh?
Yeah, putting on wide angle and pointing up to the sky away from the radiant and just let her go.
Yeah.
So let's spin around to our eastern sky here, and I'm going to change the time to morning. Let's go ahead to the morning. I guess we're still in the morning. There we go. So we're just going to go up to, say, 5 o'clock in the morning. And I'll take off the constellations right now for a second, because we just want to take a look here at what's happening in our morning sky. These beautiful planets still popping up. Mars, Saturn, and Jupiter, all in a nice line in the morning sky in the southeast. You can try your binoculars or a small telescope on Jupiter, actually. If we click on Jupiter and we bring it around to the center and we kind of zoom in on it a bit, look what we got. 4 nice moons. So we've got Ganymede, Europa, and we have Callisto and Io. Io's usually in pretty close. But if you take a look through your binoculars at Jupiter, you will see these little tiny dots sitting around it, and you're looking at 4 of the 79 moons of Jupiter, which is really pretty amazing to be able to see moons around another world sitting so far away. And that's just a few of the things that we're going to see in the sky this week. I hope you can take some time to step outside and enjoy the show the universe presents to us each night, and it's always for free. Remember that. So let's take that off and we'll stop our sharing. And we're back.
We're back.
Okay. So I think we're at 9:13, guys. That's pretty late. So let's do up our closing, I guess. So in closing tonight, I'd like to thank each and every one of you again for your continued support for our efforts here. We all thank you. I want to remind you, too, that we do love getting your photos, again, so you can send them to SundayNightAstronomyShow@gmail.com, and we will put them on the broadcast. And our special thanks again to Rosanna Armstrong for her Fun Facts episode, and, of course, Paul and Mike for your contributions to the show, guys. Thanks very much. I'd like to say good evening. For both of you. Hey, thanks, guys.
Hey.
I'm using two mics here and 2 different screens, so here we go. I would also like to ask that if you enjoyed the content here tonight, please give us a like on the episode, and if you consider subscribing if you haven't already done so for those that are on YouTube here with us tonight. I know we're on Facebook as well. And I would also ask that you share with your friends and family that we are live on Sunday nights. Finally, this may be the new normal, as we all know, at least for the foreseeable future. We're missing our live outreach at the Saints Rest Beach for Mike and I and Paul, and for us with the St. John Astronomy Club. We have to cancel a whole lot of events because we can't share our views with the eyepiece at the moment. I know these are times that are tough for all of us, but if we stick together and we follow the current health guidelines, we will get through all of this together. Each day brings us a little bit closer to putting all this behind us if we're diligent. So wash those hands, practice the 6-foot distancing rule, stay at home if you can, and know that we are here to help entertain you each week at the same time. So for now then, from Paul and I and Mike, stay safe, everyone, and we hope to see you again here next week. And remember, guys,
Keep
your
your
strokes
strokes
pointed
pointed
up.
up.
Thanks, everyone. Thanks for joining us. It was a great show. We really enjoyed bringing it to you. Take care. Talk to you all again soon.
Good night.
Night.